to find out the process of this court. That's what I was instructed to do when I called, and it was what I was instructed to do when I went to the clerk's office on the second floor there. Sitting there and listening to those words and those instructions, don't get me wrong, I can appreciate what she had to say. And had I walked in and pulled out my bar card immediately, maybe it wouldn't have happened like this. But also their belief, Deputy Berry's in particular, his belief was so strong that I wasn't an attorney. Maybe he thinks the bar card is fake. But what I want to be clear, from the time I walked into that courtroom, it took me about 13 seconds to get from the door to the clerk's desk. Maybe 10. But from the time I walked through the threshold of that courtroom until the time that Deputy Berry's hand was removed from my chest was 41 seconds. 41 seconds. And in that time, I did walk up to the clerk's desk, stopped and followed his order to check in with the bailiff. Now, what more you can do to check in with the bailiff, I am not sure. I'm literally not sure. I'm not saying this to, act like a jerk or anything. I really don't know what else I could have done besides be at the bailiff's desk, telling them the reason I was there and trying to show my bar card. That's what happened. So I'm confident, being that, once again, Deputy Berry said he had no plans on arresting me. And through all the words that were stated in court, nothing was stated on exactly what Deputy Berry was doing that I delayed him from. And that's my ultimate question. And on the appeal, we expect anyone that looks at the record to find that there was actually no delay. And so I'm hopeful and confident that when we file that appeal, the request will be to dismiss the charges for insufficient evidence. And I stand on that. I stand on what I did that day. Could I have done it differently? Yes. Did it amount to a crime? No. And so imagine what happened here. I'm convicted now. As an attorney, uncontroverted. There's no evidence against that. I don't know, Mr. King, maybe I was informed today that we didn't have a right to cross over that bar. I thought when we passed the bar and got this bar card in my pocket, that was the bar they were talking about. That's what I actually thought up until today. And so I'm confused on that. But despite that, I just want to be clear. I was not irate. I did not escalate it. It escalated when Deputy Berry got physical with me. And that's what I want to be clear here. And he got physical with me. He never asked me for my ID, never asked me for a business card. I have no problem showing it. I was attempting to show it. But I'm here on probation for a year. And we'll see how that goes. Hopefully this appeal is done swiftly and we can get this off of me. And I didn't hear any search conditions on that probation, did you?
No.
No, so all I have to do is obey all laws, and when I walk into a courtroom, check in with the bailiff. So I'm happy. Any questions?
What do you hope happens after all this is said and done?
I hope that the appeal is granted. That's my first hope. Secondly, I hope to be successful in the civil case against Deputy Berry that has been filed. And thirdly, I hope to move past this. I do know my fate as of today. As of right now, I know my fate. So I hope to move past this. I want it to be clear, this is traumatizing. It is traumatizing. With all I've done in my life, walking into a courtroom, I felt that was the one safe space for me as a black man in America. I felt that with a bar card. It might not be for anybody else that doesn't have one, but for me with a bar card, I felt that there was one place where my credentials would be respected and I would be respected would be inside of a courtroom. And so I hope people see that how easy it is to commit a crime. 40 seconds inside of a courtroom, after stating my business, after explaining who I was and what I was there for. As it was repeated, I had to tell them who I was and what I was there for. That's my duty. I did that. And but believe me, I understand, especially here in San Bernardino County, what the lay of the land is, and this conviction really lets me know that. Yeah, question?
Based on the precedence of this case, what does it mean when any other African-American man is somewhere where they're rightfully supposed to be, an officer stops them?
Or women.
Well, yes.
Black lawyers matter.
Black lawyers, yeah.
Black lawyers do matter, but you know, apparently, you might not have a right to be there. And that's what it means. That's the precedent today. I have a buddy who's a pilot there, and you know, if you look at him, maybe he doesn't look like a pilot to you, but he's a pilot. He flies planes. And so if he goes to walk down that runway and they stop him and say, hey, you don't look like a pilot, I would tell you, brother, please just stop and say, here's my ID, sir. Please, sir, just let me go. And that's what I feel like I was told to do today, in all honesty.
Yes,
That's what I
agree.
feel like I was told to do today. Like, I only looked at me. It was never mentioned that I walked from the clerk's desk to the bailiff's desk. That was never mentioned. So that's the precedent that was set, is that where you believe you have a right to be, you may not have that right.
Your initial thoughts and feelings once the ruling was sent out from the judge?
You know, it was consistent with everything that's gone on so far. I should not have been pushed. I should not have been tased. Should not have been arrested. Should not have been booked. Should not have been charged. Should not have been prosecuted. Should not have been convicted. Should not have been sentenced. So I was once again happy I'm not in jail. Let's be clear about that. But I just felt it was consistent with everything that has happened up to this point. But what I do feel is that the tide did turn today. People got to see, people got to hear what was just stated. And I want people to understand the act, it was 3 seconds. From the time he put his hand on my chest to the time he removed his hand, it was 3 seconds. But I also want people out there to understand rules can be a little bit different. But to be clear, I'm happy a word got used, because that's really what's on the backdrop of this. She felt I was arrogant. She felt I was arrogant. And I felt I did what I was asked to do when I walked from the bailiff's desk, from the clerk's desk to the bailiff's desk. I felt I did what I was asked to do, and I felt that's where the humility was. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't acting as if I was better than anyone, and you know, her statement that she doesn't know why I would talk to the clerk. Any attorney will tell you that's who tells you how the process of that court works. Yeah.
I just want to share that when I first passed the bar, I used to experience this going to court downtown, because there's two lines, an attorney line and the general public line. And every time I would go to the front, the bailiff would ask me, I don't know if it's the bailiff at the front, but he would ask me for my bar card, and I would tell him it hasn't come in the mail yet, but I still have to go to court. And we would go through this every single time. So I just want you to know that this is really important, and you're setting the precedent for us, because we're treated this way. We're treated this way, and it's really uncomfortable, and it's not fair. There's no rules. Nobody ever told us what we're supposed to do when we go to court, but there's a practice that when we go to court, we go speak with the clerk, and I've never experienced going to court and not speaking directly to the clerk. And as far as I've practiced, it's always appeared that we're like above them in the totem pole, but it's like we were treated like we were below them. But if you were in the other race, you would have been above them. So that's what's so uncomfortable.
This just happened to me too. I'm a lawyer as well. At the LAX courthouse, I was the first one in line, because now with COVID, you have to wait outside. So when a bailiff came outside to get the lawyers, I'm first. And I was ready to walk in, and she made me wait to the side while she let all the white lawyers walk in. And once all the white lawyers were let into the court, then she asked me and questioned me of who I was. And I had to repeat myself several times that I was an attorney. So it's not just happening in the past, it's still happening to us today, and that's why we're out here. They're not gonna push us in a wall and say, you're not able, you get a license, but you're not able to come practice in the courts with respect and dignity. And that's what they're telling us, is that we are not allowed to practice law as black lawyers.
Well, we can do it, but you have to do it in the confines of who you are. And that's what I do want to get out here. This is not individual to me. There's black lawyers across the country experience this kind of treatment. And so hopefully from this, more people who are allies will see, like, wow, not only does it happen, it gets to the point that it is now a criminal act. A criminal act. And as my attorney explained, when we, being that a judge in a prior ruling did rule that I was not seized until I was tased, which means they did not have a right to touch me. So me removing his hand from my chest, if that's how you choose to look at it, could not be a crime, because we all have a right to defend ourselves from unwanted touching when law enforcement doesn't have a right to touch us. But I want people to understand, this is not just Jaaye Person Lynn, this is the black lawyers across the board. And if you sit down and talk to those of us that go to court, because there's a lot of black attorneys that don't go to court. There's a lot of attorneys that don't go to court. So those of us who go to court, we experience this. And I just didn't feel like I was being arrogant that day when I walked over to the bailiff and told her who I was. And I want to be clear. Deputy Berry made a conclusion. He said, "You're not an attorney." Then I told him, "Yes, I am." And then he directed me to the bailiff's desk. And so, he was probably a little bit embarrassed that he made that determination and he was wrong. But Deputy Sutton also said, "Sir, only attorneys can pass that bar." That means she didn't believe I was an attorney as well. But at the end of the day, I'm here, I'm on probation. I'm happy that I can still practice, represent my clients. The best thing she said was that it was not a crime of moral turpitude. And that's very helpful for me. That's, if she can make that determination, so should the bar be able to make that determination. But she made that determination on the record. And so based on that determination, I got to look a little deeper to see if it is something that I still have to self-report. But we still have this opportunity to get this appeal going. And we do have the transcript already, so we can get the appeal started rather immediately.
Can you go over some of the conditions of the probation?
Obey all laws and check in with the bailiff were the only two conditions I heard. She did not impose the 12 sessions of anger management. And so those were the only 2 conditions I heard. Did anybody hear anything else?
Probation.
That's the term of probation.
And the length of it?
12 months. 12 months.
You give it 150 plus penalties and assessments?
Yeah, and $150 plus penalties and assessments, which, because I was booked, I was in custody for a day. So I get a credit of $150. And so there may be some more, but you know, that would be it ultimately.
Did you file, when was the appeal filed, today or a couple days ago?
Well, it is. I'm just now able to file the appeal. I could not file the appeal until I was sentenced. So I'm just now able to file the appeal. And what we'll do is the notice of appeal first. That starts the process. Then, based on that notice of appeal, we get further instructions, and then we file the actual appeal. And I also wanted to address what happened in Vegas. Anybody that wants to see that video, I want it to be clear. I was stopped, I was lit up by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department officers, and this was their gang, drug, and gun task force. I was in a rented Mercedes-Benz C300 that had, if it had tint, it's the lightest tint I've ever seen. It was, there is video. We were about a mile, somewhere between a half a mile and a mile from the first exit in Nevada, exit number 1, on the 15 freeway. In that scenario, and that officer testified, I slowed down, drove for a while, and then exited. What that means is that I slowed down in California. The exit is immediately past the state line. So I slowed down in California, drove into Nevada under the speed limit. So technically I didn't even speed in Nevada. When he came to the car, asked me to roll down the windows to an untinted car, I did. But I was pulled out of the car. Let me tell you, it was about 30 degrees and windy. I did not have on a jacket. I had on a long sleeve shirt. And it's funny, what kind of shirt did I have on? This print.
There it is.
African print and Jaaye Person Lynn and law enforcement do not mix. But that's what happened. I was pulled out of the car, I was patted down, and I was put in handcuffs immediately. I requested to be taken out of the handcuffs, give me a ticket, let me go out about my way. That didn't happen. My 2 passengers, my girlfriend at the time, and I had 2 house guests from South Africa, they were pulled out of the car as well. They called ICE. Immigration for the South Africans. Now, one of them was actually born here, but she was a refugee baby born here, but still, based on her birth here under the 14th Amendment, she's a citizen. But we waited out there for 45 minutes. I was shivering. You can see the video. I'm shivering. I'm cold. Now, at that trial, we tried to present the video. The judge said, since you cannot present one continuous video, I'm not going to consider the videos at all. The reason I couldn't present one continuous video is because that officer kept turning off his camera. I got about 12 videos from one officer. He kept turning off his camera. And I want anybody to look this up because he perjured himself when he said, I told my passengers not to identify themselves. After all of them on camera identified themselves the first time they were asked, after that, they tried to go in the car. And I told them, let them know you're represented. If they have any other questions, they can contact your attorney. I never represented myself as their attorney as I'm not licensed in Nevada. But that's what happened. Then after 45 minutes, they tried to get in the car anyway. After about 35 minutes, they said, look, if you do these field sobriety tests and you pass, we'll let you go. I'm like, no, I'm not doing them because field sobriety tests are quite subjective. And I know the slightest step off any line is, hey, you're under the influence, now we gotta arrest you. So after a while, I broke down, I did the test. They took me out of handcuffs. They said, hey, here's your ticket for speeding and no insurance. Because I had a rental car that was organized by my insurance company. So of course I denied the insurance from the rental car. So on the rental receipt, it said no insurance. So that's why he wrote that. After I signed that ticket, in violation of the law, he searched the car. The guy in the back had an open container. It was covered up. Then he went in the trunk. He found my guns. That's why I was arrested, even though I wasn't charged with the guns because they were all legal. Part of our Vegas weekend, we were gonna go out to the desert and shoot guns. That's what we were gonna do. And I know my mom is nervous because she knows there's nothing worse in California than a black man with a gun, but they're legal. We got them all back. They gave them all back to me. The ones that were mine and the one that was my ex-girlfriend's, they gave her back. But then I got arrested after they saw the guns. Remember, this is a gang, drug, and gun task force. They see 4 young black people in the Benz. They're thinking criminal act once they have the guns, but the search should have never happened. I was out there for 45 minutes already. I signed the ticket. There's no search incident to citation. That's what happened. So yes, I was convicted out there because the judge refused to watch the video and took the cops' lies over my truth. But the California bar, they did look at the video, and that's why I was not disciplined. And that's why they dismissed those disciplinary proceedings against me. But I encourage anyone to look at that so they can see the kind of injustice. That was a greater injustice. And even my mother was traumatized because I started convulsing, like, I asked to be put in a police car. It was that cold. And they wouldn't put me in the police car. My girl at the time was upset and talking, and they said, hey, if she doesn't be quiet, we're gonna take her out in the cold and put you in the car and make her wait in the cold. So they knew what they were doing. They knew they were torturing us. So this is what I've experienced. So I want that to be clear. I wanted that to get out. I want that to get out because I haven't been able to tell that story yet because of the way it worked there in Good Springs, Nevada. And so that's what happened in that situation. And that officer, whose name slips my mind at the moment, he perjured himself. He perjured himself, and that's why I have not been disciplined by the California bar. But that's what that was, and I didn't get a jury. So that was problematic. But I just want to be clear. I don't want people thinking I'm out here just obstructing justice, messing around. And these are the 2 situations that I was convicted of. And so it did have me rework my whole psyche on how I function and how I deal and conduct myself as a black man here in America. I don't want to deal with law enforcement at all unless it's on the record in a case or I'm handling business with my clients, because especially while I have on African attire.
Does your attorney have anything to say?